When you are a lower league club without a lot of money, free players are absolutely gold. You can go years redeveloping your club and squad with only free players. If you're, say, in the English lower leagues or other top 5 division lower leagues, or you're just in a division with a low reputation where you're not going to have a lot of money, you're going to climb up through the leagues or climb up with your club's reputation by signing free players and improving your squad that way. So, in that sense, free players are absolutely essential in Football Manager. However, they can be difficult to find at times. If you're like me with my club here, Mendiola FC in the Philippines, we don't really have a good scouting network. We don't have a big scouting range. If I go to the scouting center here, we just don't have a big scouting range. Our scouting range right now, we don't have a lot of budget. When we do have our budget, maximum we're covering the Philippines or just our league. We have a very small scouting budget and we have a very small transfer budget. So we need to sign free players, but given our scouting range, it's difficult to find those players. And if I go back to the overview here, we only have one player in our scouting recommendation, Lee Ju Young here, who is a free transfer. But to be honest, I mean, he's 4 stars, but he's 34 years old and his pace is 5. I'm not going to sign this guy. And as a result, from my lower league saves, and in particular this one, I have been forced to find my own free players just because I'm not getting a whole lot of them from my scouts. My scouts come in and do what they can, but we're pretty limited scouting wise. So as a result, I'm kind of forced to do my own scouting and I'm forced to find my own free players. So what I'm going to talk about in this video is my absolute favorite technique for signing free players, which essentially just involves clicking around the game. But I love clicking around the game. I think it's awesome. I like to explore the world of Football Manager. And the more I explore, the more free players you can find. So I'm going to talk about that now. So the first step here is this inbox item. You're going to get this at the end of major contract periods. So usually like in England and a lot of other countries, this is going to be June 30th or July 1st, where clubs in your country are releasing players. This means that every person in this inbox item can be signed for free. And I think in the lower leagues, this is the most important inbox item that you're going to get all season. This is the next gen award and the 50 best youngsters in the world list when you're a top club. This is the equivalent to that. You should go look at every single one of these players and see if they can sign for you. And this is exactly what I've done in this save. I've gone through and looked at every single one of these players. And when I had Dulwich Hamlet in the lower leagues in FM22, this was absolute gold. Essentially, this is either A, the most reputable players, or B, the reputable players who have a reputation similar to those players at your club or similar to the level of your club. So this is going to be a little bit different depending on where you are in the leagues. So always go look through these players, but this doesn't give you all of the players that were released. I highly recommend clicking on, and this is just a simple thing that seems obvious, but I haven't always done it, and maybe you haven't too, which is why I want to mention it. At the bottom right-hand part of the screen here, which I think is covered by my face, there's a button that says View Players. Click on that, and it's going to take you to all of the released players that are in your country. So if you're in England, this is going to be a huge list, but for me in the Philippines, there's only a few teams. It's a bit of a smaller list and more manageable. At the top of this list generally is the players who have retired. They've come to the end of their contract and retired. Just scroll past those. And now you have anyone that can be signed on a free. So if they're 2 and free transfer, this means they're currently available on a free. So if I start off here with Simon Rota, he currently doesn't have a club, I could approach to sign him right now. If we go to Verheye here, I could also approach to sign him right now. So anyone who has 2 free transfer, all of these players are available on a free. And then what I would do here is I don't have attribute masking on. So I can just look at them and decide whether or not I think are good. I can also compare Rota to one of my own players. So I'll compare him to someone in a similar position. And then I can just go to attributes and I can just compare them. If I like their attribute distribution compared to a player I already have, maybe I will go and sign them. However, if you have attribute masking on and you don't have these specific values, what I would recommend is offer a 2-week trial. You're not training right now. Doesn't matter how many trials you have. Max out, go do trial farming, get them into your squad, get your coaches narrowing down those attribute ranges, and then you can go from there. And literally, you could just go through here and anyone who you think would be decent, just offer them a trial. So that's real simple stuff. You get the inbox message, you view the players, you get everyone that is in your nation, and you can go through that list. If you're in England, that can be really helpful because then you can go through release players from the reserves and U18 squads of Premier League teams, championship level teams, so on and so forth. And you can pick out those players that are trickling down from the upper leagues and you can bring them in. But this got me thinking, I can expand this. So this inbox item right here, clubs in Philippines release players, I can expand this to other nations. And I thought, why haven't I done this already? I only thought about this like a few days ago. And I've already found, I'm actually later on, I've gone back in the save and I'm later on now. I've found 3 players in 2 continues who I've already brought in on trial and who I'm thinking about bringing into the team. So this is how I did that. And this is something I utilize all the time. This button here is going to give you pretty much everyone in the world. And when I click on that, I can see, so I'm in Asia, I can see all the Asian nations here. And now this is going to work best for leagues that you have loaded. So for example, I could go to Korea Republic here. And once I click on Korea, I can go out and I can go to their transfers and I could theoretically look at their release players. And then in December here, which is when Korea releases most of their players, I can just scroll down and now I have every free player in South Korea. Now, I will do this again in December because it's July now. A lot of these players probably have teams. If I look at them, they've all been signed since then. But there are a lot of good players here. And I can look through and say, all right, I can look at the clubs. And if there are clubs that aren't in the first division, because I'm not that reputable yet, I can go through. I could either offer them a trial or just look to sign them straight up. But I have a ledger of every single free player in South Korea here. And again, this is hugely important for someone in the position of maybe my club, where we just don't have the scouting infrastructure to find all those players, especially outside of my nation. So I can use this technique where I might go here and I can go to different countries and see, all right, who are the players that are on a free who I might be able to sign. So here in Indonesia, most of their players are released in May. So once May comes around, I can go through and see if any of these players are those who I want to sign. And this gives me a much larger list of players than I would otherwise have. And the other thing I would add, if you're unsure where you should be looking to sign free players and to use this technique to sign free players, there are a couple things I would think about. First, look for where you have loaded leagues. What leagues did you load at the beginning of the game? Because that's where most of the players are going to be. And if you've forgotten which leagues you have loaded, go to your detail level and then go to game and add remove leagues. These are the leagues I have loaded. So ideally, I'm looking for Japan, Singapore, South Korea, and Malaysia. This is where I would concentrate my efforts because that's where I have most of the leagues loaded. With that being said, I can also look at neighboring leagues. So we saw it earlier with Indonesia. I found that Brunei Darussalam has been a good country to look at. But I tend to find that in these loaded leagues, there tend to be more players. And the other thing I would do is if you go to the competitions that you're in and you go to your league, you can see where you are competition reputation wise compared to the rest of the leagues in your continent. So I can go down and the Philippines Football League is ranked 38th. So what I might do is, all right, I know the Thai League 3 is of similar reputation, so they're probably going to have similar level players. Chinese second division, Iranian second division, Singaporean Premier League, so on and so forth. So I might go to Singapore, Vietnam, Thailand, and China and look for clubs in those leagues who have release players. And those might be players around my level and my reputation who would be willing to come to my club, who I would look at signing. So, in summary, this is the technique that I use to vastly expand the number of free players that I'm looking at in game. It starts with what I think is the most important inbox message for any lower league side, which is the clubs in blank nation release players. Look at all the players in this inbox message, then click on view players and look at all of the released players that are in your nation. Then after that, I would expand that to other nations that you might be interested in. So once again, I would go to world. I would go look for nations that I'm interested in, for example, Korea. Then you go to their transfers. Then you might have different ones here, but I would go to release players. And then I would go back and look for when those countries change their contract dates, like when their natural contract end date is. And then I would just go through, and now you have every release player from that country, depending on whether you have attribute masking on or off. Then you can offer trials or look to sign them right there. I think this is a great technique because it gives you tons and tons of free players who you can look at signing, and then you can decide whether you want to offer them a trial or look at approaching to sign them right there. But otherwise, that's the technique. That's the idea. I hope you all are having a wonderful week. I hope you all are having the best of luck in your saves, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye.